You want me to bring that up?
Well, we're just talking about it.
Oh, okay,
I'll mention it.
yeah.
And we are live.
Hello. I hear a honk.
I call for boys action, please.
They can't get back in. It's cold out there.
That reminds me of the weatherman standing outside and he says, the prediction today is sunny.
Right.
Gets up and walks over. I call that a thorough investigation.
We're also in a good time. Salary's talking about that part for something. Yeah, they did have a good time. And also the minutes of the forestation. Present, but then very long, pretty present. I'm gonna be asking for additional money to look at some. Greg, don't believe everything you read there.
That's interesting.
You're saying what I'm thinking. There was so much bullshit on there.
I gotta make it sound scary.
This is through the form. This is number 6. Memo.
It's all done or couple.
On the,
Yeah.
did you show it? That's their new acquisition.
Oh, what a sweetheart.
I mean, daughter.
What's its name?
Poppy.
Oh, it's cute.
Understand she bites people.
She does.
She does.
I'm here to, I'll certify that that's a true statement.
We're going to obedience school. We're gonna get that taken care of. They asked me what I wanted to accomplish, and that was the first thing. She doesn't bite me.
She's a puppy.
She's a puppy, that's her job.
She's not really biting, sort of just chewing,
Is she teething?
probably.
And there's little sharp puppy teeth.
Yeah.
My little finger was in her mouth for about 10 minutes and I survived. So
No broken.
no poking skin.
I don't need to advise my insurance.
No, but you don't need to put them on buckets.
Yeah, right.
It's just plain. Good mix of Rottweiler.
All right, folks, it's 7 o'clock, so we might as well get started. And the first order of business on the agenda is to consider approving the minutes of the last city council meeting, which was held on November 21st. Those draft of those minutes has been circulated and open to suggestions for corrections or additions.
One suggestion is that I didn't realize that 2 of our council members are incredibly talented. They're both capable of being in person and remote at the same time.
Yeah, John Carter was about to address that, and he's caught it. and that-
So noted.
That will be fixed. But only 2.
Only 2, they're only talented
The
people.
rest of them are just plain
They
ordinary
don't know
people.
the difference.
Other than that, Any suggestions?
I made one radical suggestion to John. You have it there?
Yeah, the first line on the mayor's report suggested that it read, the paver section at the entrance of Hunting Creek Drive is to be repaired this week with stamped concrete that will have the appearance of pavers.
Rather than a bureau or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I think it's-
Is that about it? As corrected, is there a motion to adopt those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, and those minutes are approved as corrected. Next is the mayor's report, update on city matters. It's typical, not much usually happens between Thanksgiving and Christmas. However, there have been some very recent developments in the Prospect Cove matter. Publicly, I can say that the rezoning recommendation of the Metro Planning Commission is now poised to come before the Metro Council. They will have one meeting in mid-December. I believe it's December 15th. The published agenda, which I've seen for that meeting, doesn't have that matter on it. At least not now, but I talked with Scott Reed this afternoon and he tells me he expects that it will come up and be voted on. Next, I want to let everybody know that we will have the annual Christmas lunch for staff and police here tomorrow at noon. And all the current council members and newly elected council members are invited to join. Next, there will be a swearing in of the newly elected mayor and council members here at City Hall on January the 1st at 1 p.m. And finally, since tonight's meeting is the last regularly scheduled council meeting of the year, it very probably is the last one that I will chair. So I wrote a little speech and I'd like to give it. And I'd like to start by saying that I was upstairs with the police earlier today and they had two suggestions. One was that I should start out by saying 7 years ago, but that's not appropriate for me. And the other one was that I emulate Richard Nixon and say that he wouldn't have Evans to kick around anymore. So I'm not doing either of those. What I will say is that I want to thank everyone for the privilege of having been the mayor for the last 9.5 years. And especially our great staff members and our outstanding police. No one could run the city at all without them. On the staff, Antoinette and Julie are our public face, our front line, politely dealing with our residents every day. Ron Cundiff has so many talents, sometimes refer to him as the man of the Renaissance. He has so many talents, from supervising all public works matters, which is a huge job in itself, to creating our annual calendar and our newsletters, handling all the IT matters, including WebEx meetings. Incidentally, this month marks Ron's 22nd year here in Prospect. Rusty and Brian, working with Ron, do all the hard physical work and be good. They're good-natured about it. Our bookkeeper, Julie Osborne, I thank for quietly and competently staying on top of our finances. And John Carter, who 1.5 years ago seamlessly took over as city clerk, and he stays on top of everything. And again, I couldn't do this without John Carter. We should do everything we can to keep all of them here. I hardly need to say anything at all about our police or their leadership by Jeff Sherrod and Tony Dunham. They are professional, polite, and helpful to our residents. They are the reason why crime often happens elsewhere. No, I don't blame that on them, but hardly at all in Prospect. They're that reason. My wife Sally says they're the single best thing we get for our taxes. Finally, the best code enforcement officer I have ever seen is Rick Wilson, who is supervised by Chief Sherrard. Rick does a great job working 3 days a week. And in addition to all of them, there are the many volunteers who give of their time and talents on the numerous committees and boards, parks, forestation, library, code enforcement, and ethics. Our city, as we know it, would not function without them. Parks is led by Linda Wardell, forestation by Lee Tucci, library by Sandra Leonard, code enforcement by Randy Swan, and ethics by John Embry. Here endeth the lesson. Thank you for listening. Move on in the agenda to commission and board reports. Lee, do you have a report you want to make? You don't have to.
Our forestation board meets tomorrow, so this is somewhat of a preliminary report. Some of the things we're dealing with is a unauthorized tree removal in Sutherland, but we're making progress on that. And I wanted to say we're having 2 plantings, which are due probably this week. A replacement elm in Colley Park and a memorial red maple tree for actually Linda Wardell's husband's mother, and that'll be planted in Putney. Other things we're working on is planning for spring planting and a tree canopy program, but also very actively filing for the Tree City recertification. And I wanted to mention that one of the things we have to report for Tree City is how many volunteer hours we have. And it's about 400. That's mostly from forestation board members, but we also had some help from parks people who participated in our programs, particularly ArborFest. And also we counted some hours from council people who showed up at our WebEx meetings when they didn't have to, and we appreciate that very much. So we're looking forward to getting that report in. We're dealing with some other minor issues. They'll all be on the agenda tomorrow. Any questions?
God, Lee, would you explain what a unauthorized removal of a tree is?
I can tell you exactly what happened. Is that the ordinance that applies, it states that no street trees or so-called public trees can be removed without written permission from the forest.
So this was
Right.
a public tree.
Yeah, a tree died in Sutherland at a certain address. The property manager for Sutherland actually patrols the streets and reports dead trees to the HOA. And the HOA sent this individual a letter, okay, saying they had to take the tree out, and they did. Then they, as I understand it, they asked to put in a very small tree, and we're going to talk with the property owner tomorrow about putting in a more, let's say, replacement tree than what they put in, which is more like a bush. John Clark, who's the HOA president for Sutherland, says that he will make sure that when they have an occasion to write a homeowner where the forestation board ordinance applies, that they make sure that the homeowner knows he needs to go to the forestation board.
Okay, I'm a little confused. You're talking about a homeowner, but a public tree.
Yes, well,
How'd that work?
well, the public trees, the street trees are defined in the ordinance, and that basically this tree is between the sidewalk and the road. It's a public tree, or a street tree, whatever, which one or both. That's it.
So was it the cities or the homeowners?
So the homeowner has the responsibility but the regulation regulates that. The ordinance regulates that. Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand that. but-
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of people don't, and communication of this ordinance and its various provisions is a constant struggle. We actually have a nice guide to trees and prospect, including how the ordinance applies to property owners, and it's given out. We've had articles in the city newsletter from time to time. Not everybody reads the newsletter. People move in and out of Prospect frequently, so we have to keep communicating.
All right, thank you.
Okay? Thank you. Thanks all.
Thank you, Lee. Mr. Emery? Bound to have something to do with the ethics board.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, something to do with the ethics. Chapter 38 of the ethics ordinance does require that on an election year, which this is, or was, that we provide both a written and an oral report. You should have had in your packet the written report. And I'll just do a quick summary of it because it's pretty short anyway. But we had one request for advisory opinion, which dealt with political signage and banners in the July 4th parade. The hearing, we had a hearing, it was virtual, and determined that no ethics rules were violated. So you've got a packet on that. It was a whole lot thicker than this single sheet. The other, I'll call it a minor issue. Two of the new candidates, people who've not been candidates before, to my knowledge anyway, are served on the city council or served on any of the boards or commissions, were late in turning in their financial disclosure reports. This was an election year with 11 candidates for 6 offices, and it's awfully hard to keep up with what's going on. But I mean, basically, it was lost in the spam box or over in an overwhelming box of full mail. Just checking with the other committee members. After we got them in, we felt that the potential penalty for this, a fine of $50 a day to $1,000, was probably a little heavy-handed. And so it's been explained to them. And I think probably we need to meet perhaps with the new mayor and any of his representatives he would like to put together and look at some of the things in the ethics ordinance that, while they seem like a good idea at the time, maybe a little heavy-handed or need some changes. And that will take quite a bit of review and a meeting. So that will perhaps meet or happen later next year. Basically, we had no other meetings. We had at the bottom of my list was the expiration date members, and the expiration dates. Mine happens to be this year. Members are appointed on a 3-year rotating term. So it's my turn. But that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, you mentioned the ordinance. What does the ordinance say about the fines?
It basically is a general ordinance. It kind of came about because a few years ago we had one in particular, but several that just didn't seem to want to get that form in. The ordinance basically, and like I say, it's kind of broad based, so it can be any of the ethics violations, $50 a day to a maximum of $1,000.
Okay, but that's not my question. My question is, who is responsible for assigning the fines? Is it arbitrary?
Is it the commission, I guess, would make recommendations to city council, but city council has to act on it.
Okay, are you presenting that to us?
No,
Okay,
okay.
why not?
Just that's the way the ordinance reads. And while the financial disclosure forms were a little late, they were well ahead of the election.
But you're saying that you're saying, oh, never mind, when it comes to the wording of the ordinances. And I say that, I'm not picking a fight here. I agree it's heavy-handed, okay?
Yeah,
And I agree that the ordinances need some modification in this area.
It
But
could-
we have a problem, I think we have a problem with the arbitrariness of some of the decisions relative to our ordinances. I mean, if we have rules, we should adhere to the rules or change the rules.
yeah, Frank, I agree with you. And as a matter of fact, just a casual discussion with Greg and Sandra, that this would be a particular violation that perhaps ought to be handled in the ordinance for violation of deadlines on financial disclosure, for instance. The current ordinance says that forms should be in for candidates for office who hadn't already filled one out. They should be in 30 days ahead of the election. So between that 30 days and election day, we had a couple of people who were late. And they're emailed. They're sent out in email. And so, you know how that works. They can either get it or it can get lost in the spam box or somewhere out in cyberspace. I sent my wife something tonight. She says, I didn't get it. So
what you're really saying though, because I agree with you, I don't think that something that's in an ordinance can be waived except by the body that's enforcing it. And in this case, I just pulled it up and it says, a violation of this chapter shall be considered misconduct subject to removal from office when so determined by the city council, which I think puts it into the city council. And I think what you're saying is that there wasn't misconduct, not because of what they did.
exactly.
It's because when you looked into it, it really didn't create misconduct. It was really something lesser than that.
Right.
Because had it been truly late, you would have brought it to the city
Oh,
council.
And as you recall, because you and I have talked about this, I can almost put a name on the reason for that. But I mean, we had one in particular and others that we always just had to continually chase after to get their forms filled in. And this includes forms that are people who are in a position like myself, less so for city council members, but people on boards and commissions who also are required to fill out that financial disclosure form. And we know we can remove those. All right, the city council can, we can recommend. But how do you tell a candidate for office you can't run? And I don't think you can.
Well, except you didn't have to because they weren't late.
Right.
You got
They-
them before the
We
election.
got them ahead,
Right.
well ahead of election day.
Right.
And the 30 days is more for, I think, record keeping purposes. And so we know that everybody's checked all the boxes. And we don't have to worry about it. But ultimately got them all. We got them all, well ahead of election day. And if it had gone past election day, that might have created another problem. But I don't know how we would address it.
Well, I would suggest that your committee make a recommendation to the council on
I would agree.
wording to amend that particular
Yeah.
ordinance.
I would agree, Frank, and there are probably other things that fall into that same sort of category. I've been a part of the Ethics Commission since, I think, 2009, maybe even 2008. When Mike Scott left the Ethics Commission and went on the council, then that created a vacancy, and that's how come I'm here. But since 2009 anyway, and I've been a part of 2 revisions and probably 1 amendment of this thing. And it seems like every time we do it, we feel like, okay, we got it now. And then as we put some of this into practice, and the current ordinance went into effect in 2019. Every time we go through it, we find an oops like this.
Well, mine,
Well, it's not so much the ordinance. I also think that the world is changing. And for us just to notify by email people who have not been part of our system before probably is not far reaching enough.
I agree.
If they had gotten some phone calls, which is what I did with one of them, I think we might have had more quicker
Yeah,
response.
I think one of them's, Councilman Leonard was out of the country, maybe,
I
perhaps.
agree. I totally agree with you. And probably not looking at email.
Right.
Mhm.
And some of us have more than one email address.
Exactly.
okay, mine was just a process question.
Sure,
So,
sure.
thank you.
And I agree it needs to be fixed. Other than that,
Thank you.
you've got the report.
Sandra, do you have any library report to do?
Just very briefly, everything is going smoothly in the library. And just for your information, there are approximately 4,000 different things available for checkout in the library. The bulk of the library books, not the bulk, but probably the majority of the library books are actually leased. And a lot of people don't realize that. But the reason we lease books is that when we're finished with them, we don't own them. We send them back. And the reason that we do that is because with a tiny library like ours, we can circulate much more rapidly and get books more quickly than if we just purchase them. And this leasing program, we have to thank Sandy Toucey, Lee Toucey's wife, because she was instrumental in bringing that to us in the very beginning of the Prospect Library. And obviously, it's worked very well ever since then because we're still doing it. And you could say thank you to her, if you would, Lee.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief Sherrod, do you have a police report for us?
Okay, we once again had a pretty quiet month, which is good. People are still staying home. House checks are about half of what they were last year. So I guess the economy is still having an effect on that. We had 1,265 this past month compared to 2,400, almost 2,500 same time last year. So a lot fewer people leaving town. With regards to reports, actually, they were down pretty well too. The only ones of really significance, we did have 2 stolen cars, which for us is pretty unusual. But again, in both cases, they left the keys in the car, not necessarily in the ignition, but inside the car. Let me tell you, one of the victims had their car stolen for the second time, left their garage with the door open, the keys inside the car, the second time it was stolen. The only thing that we're missing is the valet. Because you couldn't make it any easier. Now, the good thing for them this time is at least there was a GPS. The car was stolen at 6 a.m. and Metro Police recovered the thing before lunchtime and they got their car back. But I still don't think that they're putting the damn keys inside the house. But that's pretty frustrating
They catch the
for
thief.
us. No, they know where they live, but I don't know that they've caught him yet. But that's, it was right outside a little small apartment. And it was pretty close to like Crittenden Drive area. But it had already gone to Cane Run Road and they got gas. That was a nice thing. They had more gas in it when it was done. So is that a win-win? And they didn't crash the car. They did smoke dope in it while they had it. But So I don't know.
Yes.
That's typical. That's typical. And then we had another car stolen, but, that one again, it was the keys. I believe that the garage was unlocked on that one too, door open. There is a little debate on that. We did have some thefts from unlocked cars in the area of Deep Creek that happened over a few nights. Nothing of tremendous significance was stolen from the cars. Usually it's the loose change, stuff like that that's taken. Nothing of significant value, I would say. Other than that, not a lot of big thefts or anything this month. All of us now have qualified with the new weapons, and so it was good to go. There was a significant, I guess, increase in the scoring for the, on the range for everybody. If you go back and look, I mean, the scores were in the very high 90s. And then if you score above 95%, you're considered an expert. And I think nearly everybody had scored at 95 or better on both courses. There's one for an off-duty course and one for a duty course. And everybody was scoring in the high 90s. So that we'd thought before that transitioning to this new weapon with the laser sighting and everything would make a big difference. And it did. It really did. And that's with only having that weapon a short period of time and having about an hour to transition to it and another hour to qualify with it. So as they get more and more comfortable with it, it takes a little bit of getting used to pick up the laser sight in the gun. But boy, when you do, it's wherever the dot is, that's where the bullet goes. And I'll have to admit, it's kind of fun to shoot. But bullets aren't cheap, so I'll be good to you. I'm not just going to go out there and go slinging them willy-nilly down the range.
When's the last time a prospect officer had to fire a weapon on duty?
Oh, it happens all the time, but we shoot deer and stuff like that. Okay. Oh, geez, probably once a month.
Really?
But yeah, but it usually a deer or
A crippled deer.
or yes. Oh God, yeah, we wouldn't shoot healthy deer.
I wish you would.
We're mean, but we're not. But no, we get the after they're hit by cars, you know, they'll crawl off and we'll get them with the broken legs on the side. Yeah, we'll get those, and we'll get sometimes we'll get like possums and raccoon that might have distemper or whatever, and they're out in the middle of the day. We'll get calls on them in somebody's backyard, and we'll have to put them down.
You did one in my backyard, as a matter of fact,
Oh,
a
really?
number of years ago.
That's it.
Okay, thanks, Chief. The next order of business on the agenda is to consider Municipal Order 3, Series 2022, an order consenting to the nomination by the Mayor of John Embry of the city to serve on the City of Prospect Ethics Commission and affixing terms of office thereto. Is there a motion that that municipal order be adopted?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mrs. Leonard, how do you vote?
Yes,
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Feinsley?
Yes.
Mr. Hulsman?
Yes.
Mr. Fulcher?
Yes.
Mr. Dodd?
I'll abstain.
5 yes, 1 abstain. It's adopted. And the next item on the agenda is comments from citizens. Does any of the citizens want to make comments? Okay, apparently none. Then I would consider a motion to go into executive session to discuss proposed or pending litigation pursuant to KRS 61.8101C. Is there such a
So
motion?
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Means we're in executive session. I would suggest that what we do is we just stay where we are and everybody else leave. You don't have to go to the King State. Remember, that was good timing.
Carol, Carol and Matt. They're here. And, Rosen.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just here, yes, he's putting his coat on this.
And then that's Matt.
I don't know. Working with you.
Merry Christmas, gentlemen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Appreciate your.
Thank you.
I gotta call them.
Bro, I'll just wait for you to reply to that email chain. Okay, sounds good.
Oh.